Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving deep today into the source material about a figure you likely know if you've ever been captivated by how elite athletes do what they do, the science behind it all.
Right.
We're talking about John Brenkus, the mind and, well, the face behind the really popular sports science show.
That's right. Now, we've got quite a bit to go through here. Reports from news outlets like WOLAC, FOX 11 LA, sports media like Awful Announcing,
Yeah.
and then the official statements too, the tributes.
Yeah, a whole stack. So our mission really in this deep dive is to pull out the most important stuff from these sources. We want to understand his career, his impact on media,
Mhm.
the uh, the difficult circumstances around his recent passing as the reports detail them, and also this really crucial context of mental health that just keeps coming up in the sources.
Absolutely. Sort of what did he build? What did the sources say happened? And maybe what does it all mean?
Exactly. So we'll start by exploring what made sports science so, well, so innovative.
And then we'll have to get into the details shared in these recent reports, including, like you said, a really powerful message that's come out alongside the news.
Okay, so John Brenkus, where do we even begin? For so many people, it's got to be sports science.
Definitely. The sources all point to him as not just the host, the guy on screen, but also the co-creator and executive producer, a driving force behind it.
The show kicked off back in 2007, right? On Fox Sportsnet initially.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Then it made that big jump over to ESPN for its third season onwards. And the concept, I mean, it really was groundbreaking for the time.
It was, wasn't it? Taking these super complex scientific ideas
Things like biomechanics, physics, physiology, heavy stuff.
and just applying them directly to, these amazing athletic feats we see. It wasn't just showing what happened.
No, it was explaining the how or the why, using data, experiments,
Wow.
making the impossible seem, well, possible through science.
And the sources mentioned they had top-tier, world-class athletes doing incredible things. But what seems to have really hooked people, based on these reports, is that Brenkus himself got involved. He wasn't just narrating.
Right, he put himself in the experiments. There's that story he told about a Fox Sports exec suggesting he should host because, and this is a quote from the sources, he was average.
Which sounds maybe a bit harsh, but it was kind of genius, wasn't it?
Absolutely. It created this perfect contrast. You see the elite athlete do something seemingly impossible, then you see the relatable, quote-unquote, average person try.
And the difference is stark. It makes the science instantly click.
Exactly. You see the physics in action, the biomechanics. It made complex stuff really digestible for, a mainstream sports audience.
And it clearly worked. I mean, the sources are unanimous. Sports science was a huge critical success.
Yeah. The reports mention at least 9 sports Emmy nominations.
Oh, yeah.
And wins. Multiple wins.
There's a little fuzziness on the exact number, right? Some say 2 Emmys, others mention 6.
Yeah, there's a slight variation in the reports we looked at.
Yeah.
But either way, 2, 6. It was clearly recognized at the highest level, multiple times, for excellence.
And the reach. Wow. He hosted, over 1,800 segments?
Over 1,800, and they weren't just on the main show. They were integrated into ESPN's biggest broadcasts.
Big sports stuff.
Sports Center, Monday Night Football, even the NBA Finals coverage. These segments were everywhere.
And those segments alone, the reports say, got over 1 billion views just on YouTube.
1 billion. It was just perfect for the time, presenting these data-driven insights in, informative bite-sized nuggets, as one source put it, right when sports analytics was really starting to take off.
But he wasn't just sports science, was he? The sources paint a broader picture. He was quite the entrepreneur.
Definitely. Reports mentioned he co-founded Base Productions way back. They did reality TV for different networks.
And they developed fight science first, didn't they? Which kind of sounds like a precursor.
Yeah, exactly. Like a proof of concept almost that laid the groundwork for the sports science approach.
And then later, in 2013, he founded Brinks.tv.
Right, Brinks.tv. That digital platform focused on sports content, media, betting, the whole package, trying to integrate content, community, commerce. Pretty ambitious.
Plus, he was an author, The Perfection Point. That was a New York Times bestseller, exploring human limits.
Mm-hmm. And he had his own podcast, too, The Brink of Midnight.
So when you put all that together, the groundbreaking TV show, the production companies, the digital platform, the writing, what's the takeaway about his professional life?
It's a picture of relentless innovation, I think. He had this knack for seeing connections others didn't, especially between science, sports, and media.
And translating complex ideas into something compelling.
Exactly. Compelling and accessible. He didn't just host a show. He really did change how a lot of people watched and understood sports. and built businesses around it. A real visionary in that space.
Okay, so moving on from that incredible career, the course has also brought some very difficult news recently, the official announcement about his passing.
Yeah, that came out on Sunday, June 1st, 2025.
Shared through his official channels, right? His X account, Brinks.tv.
Correct. The statement confirmed he passed away the day before, Saturday, May 31st, 2025. He was 54.
And here's the part that really stood out in the reports. The statement itself, it was incredibly transparent about the cause.
It was. It explicitly said, had been battling depression. John lost his fight with this terrible illness on May 31st, 2025. Just stated very directly.
Which is, well, it's significant.
Very. And along with confirming the cause, the statement from his family and friends had a specific request, a plea almost.
They asked for privacy, naturally, but also...
They also said they encourage anyone who is struggling with depression to seek help, a direct call to action.
That level of openness about depression, it feels different from how these things might have been handled in the past, you know? More guarded, perhaps.
Definitely. But what's also clear from the sources is that this transparency wasn't entirely out of the blue when it comes to John Brenkus himself.
Right. The reports highlight that he'd actually been quite candid about his own battles with depression over the years.
Yeah, this wasn't something he kept hidden entirely.
He spoke about it publicly. The sources point to a January 2023 interview, specifically with Marcellus Wiley, his partner at Brinks.tv.
And in that conversation, he shared something incredibly personal, really harrowing.
He talked about a past suicide attempt, didn't he, after selling sports science to ESPN?
Yes. And he credited his dog, actually, with saving him during that really dark period, just incredibly open about it.
And following those experiences, the sources say he became an advocate for mental health awareness, for seeking help.
Exactly. So when you see that directness in the official announcement about his death, linking it to depression and the family's plea for others.
It connects. It feels like a continuation of a conversation he had already started himself.
Precisely. It gives that final message even more weight, coming from that context of his own advocacy.
And, as you'd expect, when the news broke, the tributes started pouring in from all across the sports and media world.
Yeah, loads of people reacting. One of the first mentioned was Marcellus Wiley, understandably. He just reshared the official statement on X with RIP at John Brenkus. Simple, but powerful.
The sources captured quite a few others, too. Christy Dosh called it heartbreaking, said sports science was incredible, and that she only heard good things about him at ESPN.
Robert Griffin III sent prayers and remembered him as the guy who gave us the Emmy-winning sports science, Matthew Berry. He said he was incredibly sad, called Brenkus the ultimate professional, but also kind, encouraging, smart, and inventive.
So a real mix of respect for the work and affection for the person.
Absolutely. The reports noted lots of others in the industry paid tribute to, all acknowledging his impact, and the major outlets covering his death. They consistently highlighted that defining role. Host of sports science. Awful announcing. Called him the sports science founder and presenter.
What really comes through in those remembrances, I think, is that dual legacy, the professional impact, the innovation.
Or the Emmys, the show itself.
But also his character. People remembering him as kind, smart, encouraging. It wasn't just about the work for them.
Yeah, that combination really stands out.
So his passing, and especially the very candid way it was announced, it's brought the subject of mental health right back into the spotlight, hasn't it?
Undeniably. And it's a conversation, as we've said, that he himself was already contributing to.
Which makes you think, how do moments like this, when they're handled with such openness, actually shape that public conversation around mental illness? Does it move the needle?
Well, one thing we saw noted in the sources is how some news outlets responded responsibly in their reporting.
Like including resources.
Exactly.
Yeah.
FOX7 Los Angeles, for example, was mentioned for including details for the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline in their coverage, emphasizing its 247, noting the old 1-800 number still works too.
That's so important, isn't it?
Yeah.
Building that information right into the news cycle.
It's critical. It shows how a personal tragedy, when shared with that kind of honesty, can become a moment for public advocacy. It amplifies the message. Help is available. Seeking it is strength.
So when we look back at everything in these sources, John Brenkus leaves behind, well, it's a really multifaceted legacy.
It really is. Pioneer in TV, changing how we saw sports science. Entrepreneur, author, podcaster. Sports science itself became like a cultural touchstone for a while there.
He apparently reflected once on how sticky that sports science idea became, how it was just one idea he had, but it ended up defining his career in ways he maybe didn't expect.
And that whole journey, being suggested as the average man host, then winning Emmys, getting billions of views.
Yeah.
It adds this layer of, I don't know, relatability maybe to these huge achievements.
Yeah. His death obviously leaves a big hole in sports broadcasting, in popular science communication.
For sure. And it's clear from all the tributes he's going to be deeply missed by a lot of people.
But beyond the Emmys and the views and the innovation, that openness about his battle with depression,
Started by him, continued by his family.
it stands as this incredibly powerful final statement, doesn't it? His story, while so tragic, it just hammers home how vital mental health awareness and support really are.
Absolutely. That courage to address those struggles so directly, even in the context of his passing, it ensures his legacy isn't just about the cool science segments. It's also about this urgent message about mental health reality and the need to seek help.
Which leaves us with something to think about, maybe. Here's a final thought for you, the listener. In a world that often celebrates only the outward signs of success, the strength, what can we learn from people like John Brenkus who publicly navigate these really profound internal struggles?
And how does that kind of openness, that vulnerability shown by someone so accomplished, maybe change how we think about what resilience truly means?